close to being done. These are the only seeds I have left on my massive, it ended up being $3,300 is how much I spent on this Johnny's order. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that I'm really excited for this coming up season, that I kind of haven't really grown before. I'm a little bit time constrained, more so than other times when my time constraint is just how ridiculous is it to talk infinitely. Ian's sick, so I have to keep this to an hour because I have to put the kids to bed tonight. So I'm gonna start with some of the stuff that I'm really excited with. But there's a lot of bits and pieces, and so if I don't get all the way through everything that's left to talk about, because there still is actually a million things here, then I'll finish it up next week. But it's very exciting. So this week I have been going through on my cell phone. I've been like making notes, like because there's a ton of this stuff in this box that I don't really know about. So I've been trying to figure out when I need to plant it, where I'm gonna plant it, like timelines for stuff. And there's a lot of things in this box, because a lot of this is stuff that is potentially a little bit more cold hardy, or it's things that have a longer season. A lot of my focus previously has been stuff that is very quick to be ready to harvest. So like days to maturity, DTM. I've been looking for stuff that it's not like I have to plant it in the spring and take care of it and baby it, and then I'm not picking it into the fall. I've been avoiding those kind of things. And there's a few things in here that are, kind of stuff that I would have not chosen to grow in the past because of how long the DTM is. So there's been a lot of learning that I need to do, but I'm feeling pretty confident about it. So I'm extra excited because I've been going through everything, and I'm also feeling like I actually have I have a clear idea of what all this stuff is, because this order that I actually did back in November. So some of the stuff, as I had been going through it, I was like, what is this? Why did I buy this? And then I've been going through Johnny's website and being like, oh, look at these pictures, I know exactly why I bought it. I'm like, oh, what should I start with? I want to start with like the one I'm the most excited about. Okay, so I think what I'm going to start with here is, so I am trying out a bunch of Dianthus. So what I have here, because so in the Dianthus family, there's stuff that looks like Sweet William, which kind of looks like phlox, if you're familiar with it. And I have my catalogs here, but the pictures are so forward. Let's see if I can get a picture. Because I'm sure that they do have pictures in this catalog. I'm like, oh, look how good everything is. But okay, so here we go. Okay, so this is the Dianthus page, and so what we have is, so there's stuff here, right? And this kind of look, which is what I was saying. This is like the stuff that's kind of Sweet William, even though it's Dianthus. It looks similar to phlox, but a little bit shorter, right? So it comes up on a stem, and then it has like a bunch of small flowers, making this ball puff on the top. And then there's Dianthus that's like this, which is a carnation. So this, very, very different looks, even though, they're kind of the same category. And so the Dianthus that is like the Sweet William style, those are very quick, and there's something, and they're cold hardy, and I mean, this isn't super early days. I was like, I have a bunch of numbers in my head. So these are saying they're like 100 days. DTM, 100 days until you have like flowers to be picking on them. But so even though this isn't like, it's not like this is, I'm going to be picking in May, but this is still going to be like a late spring, early summer cut. Whereas the Carnation styles are 140 days. So my plan for this is to have something kind of later into the season. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the Sweet William ones. What I got is I got sweet purple white bicolor Dianthus. Hold it up there. And this one is in the. There's a picture of it, and let's see. Okay, let's hold it up, and then I have to hide my face so it'll focus. So this one here, the multicolor one, and the coloring looks really pretty on it. So I'm really excited about this, and so I have lots of questions about it. I'm like, is the stem gonna be long enough? Right? Like, so this one, it's saying 18 to 36 inches, which, like, that's a pretty good stem length. But I also got Volcano Mix, and it is this one here. And this one is shorter, Volcano Mix there. It's on the pack it's saying here 16 to 24 inches, and so that starts to be quite small, because even if I'm picking it like quite low, I kind of ideally want stems in like the 18-inch, right? Like this is 6 inches, so like on my I want it as long as my arm. That's kind of like the 18-inch, because that gives me good stems to work with to make a bouquet to sit into a bucket. If I'm getting stems that are kind of like 12 inches, 14 inches, those start to be very petite. They're fine if I was going to be arranging them into a mason jar to make a small arrangement. The ranunculus that kind of are one of the early in the spring flowers, their stems are short, but the ranunculus are so stunning that you can do just ranunculus, and people are really excited about it, so I can get away with it. Whereas this kind of Dianthus type thing is it's something that I want in more of a mixed bouquet. So I'm a little bit interested to see how it is. And then another thing, if I remember correctly, let's see. Yeah, saying cool temperatures are required to keep plants low growing and basal branching. Avoid warm temperatures in excess of 65, especially at night, which will produce soft growth. So we have really weird springs. We have no rain, and it can be really hot. So we'll have cold nights because we're like a desert, right? So classic desert, right? Like it can be very cold at night, and then it gets hot during the day. So we have that in the spring, and so beginning of May is our last frost, but May can be quite warm. So and then but like we get rain in June. But by mid-June, last year we had the heat wave in end of June, which got up to, like it was like 120 or something crazy here. That's not normal. That was like record breaking. Nothing like that had ever happened before. But June can be full on summer for us. So I'm always cautious about these things that need cool temperatures, but then can't be too cold, right? Because we'll still be freezing, in April. So I'm interested in these. My plan with these is I'm going to be starting them now. And then I'm going to be planting them in my greenhouse, in my high tunnel, and see if I can get these to bloom early to kind of have them be something, beginning of June, and see how that goes. But yeah, so this I don't have too much of it because this is more of an experiment. But the one that I'm super excited about is the Carnation Dianthuses. And so this is the perfect example of I would have never grown this because it's fussy. It takes a long amount of time. It has the exact same, concerns about the growing conditions where you have to get them planted out when it was still cool. So with these like carnations, let's tell you the varieties that I got. Okay, so I got Marie, and then I'm Canadian, so I should do better with French pronunciation, but for the life of me, I can't remember how to say this. Chabot, I think, is Chabaud, Chabot, I think. So I got Marie Chabot, and I got Orange Sherbet, and then I got the mix. So I'm gonna hold this up, cover my face. Okay, so this is the Marie Chabot, and it's like a creamy color. And then the orange sherbet, this one here, which this picture, like the color, like especially on the camera, it's not really looking like anything. But really cool kind of orangey tones, but still like an orangey tone that will blend really nicely with pink, so kind of like apricots, but and then variegated with white. I'm really excited to see it. And then the main thing that I got cover is this, which is a mix, and it has like a bunch of different colors. And so these carnations, they're not super big. They're not like, like those big massive ones that you see sometimes in the, in the cheap grocery store bouquets. It said it's like 1.5 to 2 inch blooms. So, like quite small, but then they're like a cluster of them. So I think these are going to be really fun in bouquets. And a carnation is like the classic, right? And any day you could go anywhere, you could find a thing of carnations. But I've never seen anyone growing carnations. No one grows them in their gardens. I haven't really seen them down at the farmer's market. So I think that this is something that, if I'm having it and I'm like, oh, locally grown, it'll make it special. And then the thing that's super exciting about carnations, the reason why you can find them everywhere, is they have like crazy phase life. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what these do. So these, I need to get these started like fairly soon. I bought a big pack of seeds so I bought a 5,000 pack of the mix and then like 1,000 each of the other ones. And I'm thinking maybe I can direct seed these. Maybe, I can make a row in the high tunnel. I can, beginning of March, go out and direct seed an entire bed of these, save myself the work of having to start them ahead of time, because they like these cooler temperatures to get going. So maybe I haven't wanted to devote the space and the time to growing these in the past, but maybe if I'm doing it, direct seeding and just making sure they stay watered, this might actually end up being a really simple thing to grow. I know that they are resilient to the heat once they get going, because that's the thing I'm always worried about. There's so many that are so many things that need the cool weather in the spring, but also can't handle the summer heat. And these, from my understanding, they can handle the summer heat. Yeah. So ideally, what I would like, because what I've found is I have the zinnias, but the zinnias are so beautiful in July and August. But come August, September, it would be nice to have something a little bit different. And so I've found all these things that are popular. Sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? I found lots of things that are like, the cool loving flowers that I can plant, direct seed them in March. I can plant them out in April when we still have risks of frost. These things that like the cooler nights, I can plant them out and then they bloom, and I've started to find all these things so I can have flowers in May, June, beginning of July, when the heat loving flowers kind of haven't really started yet. So July has become this month where I have tons of stuff. I have like these cool things that are still going, and I have the hot weather loving stuff starting again. But I probably could use some more things to add to the mix after those cooler weather crops finish. And I feel like the carnations, these like dianthuses are going to be have really good potential. So I bought a lot of this. I want to do a big test of this. I want to plant, maybe I'll do a half bed in a greenhouse. I'll do a full bed out in the farm. But I want to give this a proper test because I feel like this could have a lot of potential for me. Okay, and then another thing, similar idea, something that I've never grown before because it takes a long time, seems kind of fussy. There's just been no reason to do it because it's been in that summer season, But yet again, it's something that could go into the later time of the year and be something that's going to be excellent for me, like August, September, maybe even into October. Is the asters. I'm looking for pictures because they're so beautiful. Okay, so the asters, and like these are just incredible. These look to me like a mum. These look to me like all the things that are so exciting about those really beautiful mums. But the issue with the mums is you can't grow them from seed. Mums you have to grow from like a cutting. And yet again, they're like these things. You grow them forever. You have to like have them in a greenhouse just so that you can like pick them, plant them in like the spring, and you baby them, and you only get a harvest in September and October. So it's kind of hard for like a zone 5 to make a big commitment to something like that. But the asters, I can do them direct. I can do them from seed, and plant them out, and they're really beautiful. And we toured a local friend's farm, and she had a bunch of them, and they looked gorgeous. I really love the look. Okay, let's see. Which ones did I buy? I bought king size apricot, and I bought tower custom mix. Okay, so I'm gonna hold the picture up to show you guys. So this is the tower series. So I got a mix of those, and then this is the king. What is it? King size apricot. So very, very pretty. And these are supposed to be massive. So I was really excited about these. I was like, let's do it. I think I bought pretty big pack size because this I don't think I can direct seed. These I think I need to start. Yeah, so I bought 1,000 pack of both of those. That's a lot of seed. But as I've been researching this, I'm like, what was I thinking? Why did I buy this? The problem with the asters is pretty much everything on my farm is always dying from Aster's yellow disease because I have a plague of grasshoppers. I have plague of locusts. One of the biggest pests on my farm is grasshoppers. I don't know how I'm going to get rid of them. They get better every year that I have more things in production, but there's just so much space for them to, be able to overwinter because they really like the dead, dry grass areas. So even as more of my farm is in production, things are more lush, and therefore there's less habitat for grasshoppers. I'm surrounded by like dry grassland where they just come in. So pretty much like come August, every single one of my plants who could possibly get Aster's yellow disease is like dying. I love all the fancy echinaceas. I love the look of them, but they're super susceptible to the Aster's yellow. So there's a lot. I'm very cautious about perennials that I buy. If I don't buy any perennials that are susceptible to the Aster's yellow, the Rudbeckia here on the farm, by the time the cold weather comes, so I grow my Rudbeckia as an annual. By the time the cold weather comes, 50% of my Rudbeckias are affected by Aster's yellow disease, meaning that, even if they could overwinter, I probably don't want to. They're not really going to do anything. My dahlias. My dahlias, I'm pretty sure, had Aster's yellow, though they could have. Okay, and then the other thing, the grasshoppers are the worst. I'm just going to take a moment to rant about grasshoppers because I hate them. They spread so many. So the issue is they spread viruses, right? And the fact that it's like a virus is what makes it extra difficult. Because I'm pretty sure the Aster's yellow is a virus and not a bacterial infection. And so like once it's in the plant forever. But they also spread the tobacco mosaic virus. There's like a bunch of like bacterial diseases that they spread. And it's like a nightmare. My dahlias, I'm pretty sure. So I had a big patch. I had like 150 dahlias last year. They did nothing. Dahlias hate how dry and hot it is here. But beyond that, they also, by the time the weather cools down in the fall, so that they'd maybe would start to produce again, the grasshoppers have gotten into them. They've got all diseased from the grasshoppers, so they don't even do like a fall flush on my dahlias, which is like part of the reason why I'm like, maybe I'm not doing dahlias ever again. Like everything that they can possibly possibly get spread into, like, I've had diseases in my tomato plants from the grasshoppers. So they're the worst. So yeah, so the Aster's yellows disease, which is a pain in the butt. I fight it constantly. The reason why it's called Aster's yellow disease is because the plant who's the most susceptible to it is Asters, China Asters, which is what I have here. And when I was reading some research on, like, oh, how am I going to do the asters? They were like, if you have grasshoppers, just don't even bother trying to do asters, because you won't even get flowers because they'll get asters yellow so quick. So I'm like, oh, I don't know. So so at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do about this. They're beautiful. I would love to have some of these. But there's no point putting in all the work if I'm not going to get a harvest. So the only way it makes sense for me to grow these asters is if I insect net a bed of asters, which I can do because we have bought insect netting for being able to grow some of my vegetables, but we're not really going to be growing very many vegetables next year. So I very easily could insect net. I have it on hand to be able to do it. It's a lot of work. If you have insect netting over it, any sort of weeding that you need to do, you need to, like, lift the insect netting to do that, and the insects get in, and then it's like, what was the point? So I don't know. They're beautiful. I love them. If I start running out of space, these probably won't get done this year. But I have them on hand. I can try them next year. Okay, here's another one I'm so excited about. I got Nigella. And I'm pretty sure there's pictures in here of this one. So the reason why I got this is because I started seeing it in the fall. Everyone was using it in their dried flowers. Okay, so here's so I bought Albion black pod and Albion green pod, and there's a picture in the catalog, so I'm going to show it to you guys. Okay, so let's see. I don't know. Okay, yeah, I think it's focused. So this is the green pod and this is the black pod, right? And so with these, so this is wait, no, that's Love in a Mist. Is Love in a Mist Nigella? I don't know. I try to stick with, like, only common names or only, like, Latin names when I think about it. I don't know. I think that this is the same as this. But these ones are specifically grown, the Albions are specifically grown for the pods. And these I'm super excited about. So I can pick them for the flowers, but the pods is what I think the pods look super cool. They're the perfect example of something that would probably be classified as, like, an ugly flower, and I'm like, I have to have it. Oh, thanks guys. Yeah, so Nigella is Love in a Mist. And you know what? I think I bought the classic Love in a Mist, like the blue Love in a Mist too. I'm pretty sure I did. Maybe I bought it and it was sold out, or maybe I bought it and it's still on its way. But yeah. Yeah, no, I thought I bought that. So this I can pick for the flower, and it's saying it's 65 to 70 days to flower, which is, like, super fast, because this is also a really early one. This one I'm probably going to experiment with have a few plants in the high tunnel. I'm going to do a lot of experimenting. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be starting this week that, I'm going to do. When I start stuff, I do, like, 5 trays. Right? I'm like, I want 400 of something. There's no time that I want to do, like, 5 plants of something. But this year I'm going to do some experimenting in the tunnel, because I have one tunnel that I'm going to fill. And as it is right now, because I'm probably going to do an entire bed of snapdragons inside the tunnel, or like I'll do a half bed of snapdragons. I don't know. I haven't decided where everything's going yet, but I figure I have about a bed and a half of space to experiment with. And so there's a bunch of things that I want to see how they do in my tunnels, to see if I can get early flowers. So I'm going to be growing like 20 or 40 of a single plant and then plant it out in a cluster so I can do an experiment. And then I'm also going to be, like, planting a bunch of these, like, cooler weather stuff, a little bit later out in the field, right? Because starting March, I can direct seed. February, we still have lots of snow on the ground. I'm a sand pit here, so as soon as the snow melts, like the day after the snow melts, my ground isn't wet, I can plant. So I start planting beginning of March, and then there's still 2 full months. Beginning of March, it's still like freezing. The soil is usually defrosted at that point, but it's like still lots of cold. So stuff doesn't necessarily germinate. They need a little bit of time before they germinate. But if I can get them into the ground, and then they'll germinate whenever they want to. And so there's a lot of these things like the Nigella here, which likes that cool weather. There's other things that want to have a period of like freezing at night, warming up during the day to get the good germination on the seed. And so, I think there's tons of stuff I plant beginning of March for that. And then we don't have very many birds or like probably the only thing I need to worry about having anything like other than sunflowers direct seeded early in the spring. These small flower seeds, I don't have to be super worried about them disappearing out of the ground. But yeah, so the Albions, I can pick them for flowers if I want, but what I'm really excited for them is for them to be the seed pods. And the thing that's exciting about seed pods is they have like crazy vase life. They last forever. They're like really structural, really architectural, that look that I really like. And they look totally different than anything else I can get early in the spring. I find a lot of these kind of like cool flowers, spring flowers, they have that more like cottagey, romantic look, which is not necessarily my favorite look. There's lots of things that are like long spike type stuff, like everything's like a larkspur shape. There's not many disc flowers. There's not many very like round things. So having these pods is something I think I'm going to really appreciate to have early on. Something that's going to look distinct from everything else. Something that's going to be able to get a different look. And then if they don't, if no one's liking them, they're not selling, I can cut them and I can dry them. And they make incredible dried flowers because they look super funky. And I've seen these just like on their own. Just a bouquet of... So I'm just distracted by it. We need a KX1 emoji, a little kale leaf emoji. That'd be funny. It's very entertaining to me. Yeah, I'm excited for these. That one I'm definitely excited about. I'm excited about it because I can like plant I could overwinter it probably in the high tunnel. I could like direct seed it in March. There's like a lot of things to be excited about. Where are we at? Okay, we're half an hour. We're making progress, guys. We've actually gotten through. Look, we've gotten through actual seeds. Okay, what else is here that I want to talk about? I'm trying to like do the stuff that's like clumped together in a category. I don't know. I guess I've been like these are mainly I've been talking about like a lot of earlier stuff. Maybe I should keep kind of with that theme. There's so many good things in here. Wait. Okay, so here's one. Let's talk about this because I'm excited about this in a similar way as I am about the Love in the Mist. So I have Scabiosa, a pack. This is Pincushion Formula Mix. Let's see if we can get a picture for this one. Because this same idea. This is something that I can start. I can direct seed it. I'm going to start a few this week to be able to put into the greenhouse. Okay, here, let's do the picture first. Cover. Okay, so this is the one, right? So these like fun little balls on these stems. They look like, so I grow bachelor buttons because they're super easy to grow. They're a pain in the butt to pick. I hate harvesting them, but they're super early and they're super easy. So I grow them for like the first thing in the spring. And they're not my favorite look. Like I like having them, but I wish I had something else other than bachelor buttons. And I feel like the Scabiosa will be that for me. It'll be like I'll be able to use it in the way that I use the bachelor buttons, but it maybe will just look a little bit more sophisticated, and therefore be. So my issue that I have with bachelor buttons is that they're a pain in the butt. It's as much work to put a single bachelor button into a bouquet as it is to put a big fat zinnia into a bouquet. But if you ask people, how much is this bachelor button worth? They say, oh, it's worth $0. I don't want to pay for bachelor buttons. If you're going to make me pay for them, don't put them in the bouquet. So it's difficult. They take a lot of work. They're available at a time when there isn't very many good options, but people don't value them. And so if people don't value them, you can't necessarily get what they're worth. So it's difficult to make growing bachelor buttons make sense as a business. So I'm excited to see these Scabiosa. Yet again, this is something that I don't see people growing around me. So I don't have a lot of experience with it. But I feel like Scabiosa people will value more than they value the bachelor buttons. For I use stuff that are like weeds. I use it in this time of year when I was using the bachelor buttons. I was using like a lot of alfalfa. I was like using clovers. And no one ever looked at a bouquet and was like, oh, these like weeds, what a bunch of garbage. This isn't worth anything. People will be like, oh, I love these like little textural features. And they'd be like, oh, and I love the bachelor buttons, but like all there is bachelor buttons. So it's hard. It's hard with the bachelor buttons. So I'm hoping that the Scabiosa will do what I want the bachelor buttons to do. But we'll see. So, and I see a bunch of you laughing about the seed pack. And here, I don't even know what these, I think that the seeds look kind of crazy, and I think that's why the pack is so big. My bad light and like live video on my cell phone, it's not going to be able to show this on the camera. Let's see. Okay, come on, camera. I need to hide my face. Okay, so they look like mini, like badminton. Like the little badminton things. Like I don't know what those are called, but the cones that you use for like badminton, that's what these seeds look like. They look like a very mini little thing. So the seed itself is like really big. A birdie, that kind of rings a bell. Shuttlecock. Yeah. So they're a crazy looking seed, and that's the reason why this pack is so big. This is a 5,000 pack. But so the reason why I bought this many seeds, and guys, like for context, I'm grabbing another 5,000 pack here to compare. Cause the size of these packs doesn't always mean anything. Okay. So this, which is like thin, it's not even super full. This has 5,000 seeds in it. This also has 5,000 seeds in it. Or like this. So this here, this like massive pack, this has like 1,200 seeds in it. The size of the seed is partially relative to how big the pack is, but I am buying a lot of big packs in these things that I'm showing to you guys because I want to be direct seeding it. And so when I direct seed stuff, it's going into like my hopper on my Jang seeder, and it's dumping a ton of seed into the ground, and a bunch of the seed is not going to germinate. So if for the stuff that I'm going to be direct seeding, I need large volumes. First of all, I need large volumes to just be able to have seed in the like the seeder. The container that holds the seed is about this big. If I put 100 seeds into it, it won't work. You need a lot of seed to go into the thing to get it to actually fall through. So I do need to buy these bigger volumes. But yeah, so that's why I have this massive pack, because I'm going to be direct seeding that one. Okay, and then I don't have the seed here because I actually brought it down to my outbuilding. But another thing that I bought is I bought a perennial Scabiosa, and it's this here. And this is the Fama series, and I think it's blue and white. yeah, blue, deep blue Fama and white Fama. And so these are a perennial. And this is the Scabiosa that people grow for cut flowers more, because the flowers are a lot bigger, and they're supposed to be a lot more dramatic, and they're supposed to have a better vase life than the other Scabiosa, but it's a perennial. So this I need to get started right away, and I need to grow it out. And I don't know if I'm going to really be getting any picks on it this year, or if it's something that I'm gonna have to kind of grow out, and then next year I'll start harvesting. But I tried to buy it as a perennial plug, instead of, if it's anything that's perennial, I'd rather pay $1 and get a plant than pay a penny and get a seed and have to do all the work of growing it out, because it's nice to be able to buy a year's worth of time. But I don't think they had it available, or it was sold out, and that's the reason why I ended up buying this. Okay, and as I'm looking at this page, I'm seeing something else that is that's in this pack. So I got the picture of it, so maybe let's just talk about it. Okay, so I also have this here, and this one right here. I don't know if it doesn't really want to focus there. Focusing a bit better. Okay, and this is Victoria Blue Salvia. And so I have some experience with salvias, but I think that they're usually a perennial. Yeah, okay, so it's saying it's a tender perennial in zone 8 to 10, but best as an annual. So I've grown salvias before. I have some in my garden because they're drought tolerant. They like the heat of the summer. So they're a very common landscaping plant in Kelowna, salvias, and I have used them in bouquets, but yet again they're like short. You can kind of get like 12-14 inches on them, which isn't bad if it's just kind of like a filler. Oh, thanks so much, Black Dog Apiary. Always nice to see you here, and like. We highly appreciate. I was saying to Ian, I was like, they're too generous. I'm starting to feel bad by how continuously generous you guys always are. We need to have the Black Dog garden, because you've definitely paid for enough to fill Ian's garden. You rename it from the Garden of Ian to the Black Dog Apiary Garden, because you've definitely helped us fill it with all the perennials and all the dahlias we could ever want to buy. Okay, so salvias. Okay, yeah. So I have salvias in the garden. I pick them and I like them. They're kind of like a sage type thing. But so this is supposed to be a bit taller. Yeah, it's saying 18 to 24 inches. And then I'm thinking, so this, I'm like, I don't know how to grow. It sounds like a lot of work. Okay, no, I'm busy, so you can't be playing in here today.
Yeah. You know where my tablet is?
Oh, go ask Daddy. They don't know where your tablet is. But I think Daddy was playing on it, wasn't he? Or look in your sister's room. Sam's coming to ask all of you where his tablet is. Okay. So this is supposed to be a little bit taller. I'm worried. Yeah, okay, and I see someone in the chat saying the smell. I like the smell. It smells like a sage to me. And it can be a little sticky, I find. Kind of like a sage flower is. But I like it. I don't, I also like the smell of marigolds. It's everyone. Yeah, it's under the bed. That's funny. Yeah, so the salvia, it seems... Oh, thanks so much, Mary. Good job. I love the stickers. They make me laugh so much. Yeah, so it's saying that I should start it as a transplant. It seems like a lot of work to grow this, because I'm essentially going to just cut it off in the ground and it's going to be a filler. So it seems like a lot of work to grow it like as like to grow out this transplant for a while. So what I'm thinking I'm probably gonna do with this is, because I was looking at it, I'm like, do I have space for this? This is like sounding kind of fussy. I think I just bought it because I was like, oh, I want to buy everything. This was like a when my ability to resist the urge to buy everything failed me, this made it into the cart. But I think I might try a tray. And what I'm gonna do, so the way I grow basil for doing cut flower basil is that rather than having one single basil plant that I pinch so that branches to get lots of stems, what I've started doing is, because it takes forever to like drop the seeds into like the seed trays, and like I don't have time for that. So what I do with the basil now is I just like get a handful of seeds and I go and I just sprinkle it all over the entire seed tray. So it takes me like 30 seconds to seed the tray instead of 5 minutes, which is how long it takes to be like 1, 2, 3. And then each of the plugs, rather than having one basil plant, is actually a cluster of basil plants. And then I don't pinch them because pinching also takes time. But then they kind of get like, they get super leggy because they're competing with each other. So rather than pinching it to get like 4 or 5 stems from the single basil plant, I grow 4 or 5 little basils together in a cluster so that they're leggy, and it's worked really well that way the last 2 years, which thanks for the countdown, which I think I did, like, I think I started doing it just because I was like too lazy. But my laziness works. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to give this an experiment, the Salvia, and I'm going to grow it in the same way. Rather than trying to fuss to grow a single salvia, I'm going to grow these like clusters of salvia, and then hopefully that'll make it nice and leggy, because that's the goal. You want to have these unhealthy leggy plants when you grow them for cut flowers, so then you can get good stem length. And if it's not all like bushy and side branching, if it's more of like a single sad stem, that also is a lot better for me to use. Yeah, so I don't know. I love the look of it. Hold up the picture one more time. It looks like what I want lavender to look like, right? Like, you know, I like lavender, but there's no world that I'm going to go and do the work that it takes to cut lavender to sell it, because it's too much work. But this looks like it can have the advantage of lavender, but like be really punchy per stem. So I'm excited. Okay, let's see. What do we have time for? Okay, let's talk about marigolds, because this is another one that I'm really excited for the coming up season. And there was like a page of pictures. So this isn't going to be my first time with marigolds, because last year I did an experiment on marigolds. I think I only bought one. It was very expensive, but I was like, you know what? I want it. And I'm always looking for more orange in the peak of summer. I find orange, I like working with it a lot. You know, it's very punchy, it's very bright, it sells really well down at the farmer's market. And then I also was looking for stuff that would do well going into the fall. So, you know, marigolds seemed like an easy answer. So last year I bought this, which I bought again. This is Cocoa Gold. And it's an African marigold. So it's like the big, tall, like puffy ones. Okay, and I'm gonna hold up the color. I'm gonna hold up the page to show you guys. Because okay, so this is the gold. This is the cocoa gold. You know, and you can see the color, right? It's like bright. It's not like a deep, rich orange. It's this very bright orange. So it's very fun and very flashy. Okay, and then I'm gonna keep on this page because I actually bought all of these. So this is what. I can't actually read it on the screen, and I have to block my face to be able to tell you what it is. Okay, Noceto Lime Green. That's this one here. And it looks quite yellow, but apparently they were saying on this that its centers start green. You know, you can kind of see a little bit of the center there, and it gets more yellow as it opens up. So I think if I pick this tighter than what they're showing in the picture, it'll be a lot more green. And I love green. I'm obsessed with green, so I had to try that. And then I also bought the yellow and then the deep orange one there. And those are giant yellow and giant orange. Okay, so like I said, last year I bought the Cocoa Gold, and I'm trying to think how many of them. I had a very small patch. I think I did a tray, right? And then so maybe there was like 50 plants. It was about, I don't know, it was about a fifth of a bed. So 50 plants sounds about right. And I really enjoyed working with them. One of the things that I really liked about them was I could, I'd pick it. The way I had to cut the stem to get good stem length on them is I had to cut quite deep, like let's say this is the plant. So this was the single flower, right? So if I picked it for just the single flower, it wasn't a very good stem length. So what I had to do is I had to actually pick it down quite low. And then, so if I picked it here, let's say this is the branching. So I picked it here, these still stayed on, but then, so there was a single bud, and then there was like a single flower and then two buds, because I picked it down there to get a nice long stem. And so I had to pick a lot of the plant for each flower to be able to have it long enough to use. And by the time I got to the fall, they were getting longer, probably because I had been picking, like I said, if I picked this, I picked these three down here, and then these two are still here, I could actually pick it quite low, or like they grow a bit taller. So later in the season, I was able to get some singles that actually had good stem length. But yeah, so the thing that I really liked about it is that because I was picking it with multiple branches, even though there was a single flower, it actually had this like really stiff cage structure to it. Oh, and I see someone saying 3 cuts per plant. No, that's just, I have 5 fingers. I'm trying to give an understanding that I'd have to pick down here. There was lots of cuts off of them. They were very prolific. Yeah, so when I picked these stems that actually had lots of branchings to it, and I'm losing stuff. I don't mind the smell of marigolds. I like the smell of marigolds. They do smell a little medicinal. So I could see that some people don't like it. But I don't think that no one ever was like, I'm not buying this bouquet because it has marigold in it and I don't like what marigolds smell like. The smell, like on a lot of the things that I grow here on the farm, the smell also is, you only smell the smell of these kind of herbal things, like even like the basil, you only smell it like when you grab it, right? So you can smell marigolds when you pick it up out of the bouquet, or like when you take the elastic off and fluff it into your bouquet, but then as it's sitting there on your table, it's not like your house is going to start smelling like marigolds just because you have like a couple stems of marigolds in a bouquet. It's more like it releases the smell when you crush the foliage. So I can smell it a lot when I'm stripping stems and working with it, but I don't think it's overwhelming for most people in their home. Yeah, but so a lot of the scent on marigolds is actually in the greenery, but I really liked working with the marigolds because I was able to take a single stem with the big flower, and it kind of had this cage structure of multiple stems, and I was able to take it, have it be a nice big focal in the center of a bouquet. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like literally holding a marigold right here, but I know that it doesn't make sense. Okay, here, drop. So this is like what the marigold was like for me, right? Like, instead of just being like instead of like, I grabbed one single flower, right? Like, it's not giving me a lot to start with to start a bouquet. With the marigolds, it was like this. I grabbed one thing and it was like, whoa, this big, huge, bulky thing. And it was like spiking up all over the place. And so what I liked about it was I could start with this. I'd have like this big punchy orange flower for the center of my bouquet. I had all this like filler, and then I could use this as a cage to start building my bouquet, right? So I'd be holding it like this, and then I'd start slotting things in. And by starting with that single marigold, it made for very quick work for putting the bouquets together. So I like the look of the marigolds, but it also was, it was the type of flower that, like I was saying earlier about the bachelor buttons, The bachelor buttons are a pain in the butt to work with, and they don't actually add a lot of value to the bouquet. A marigold, let's say, like, to pick one of these stems of marigolds, because there is going to be like lots of cleaning that you're going to have to do on the stem. Let's say the amount of time it takes me to clean 2 bachelor buttons is how long it takes me to clean one single one of these marigold stems. But by starting with this single marigold stem, I already, it almost looks like a bouquet just to start with. So it has a huge amount of value in a bouquet, even though it's quite low labor, and it makes the work of building the rest of the bouquet even easier. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that is like, I was hugely inspired by the marigolds last year. And then also, as I said, no one had any issues. No one had any issues at all with me having marigolds in the bouquets. Ian never came back and was like, oh, like, people were going to buy a bouquet and then they saw marigold and were like, no, I'm not going to buy this. I don't like marigolds. So, because I'd heard people say there was concerns about customers being resistant to marigolds in mixed bouquets. So they're amazing to work with. They grow super well in my conditions, and they sell well. So, like, 10 out of 10, must grow forever. So I'm really excited. My plan is I'm gonna do an entire bed of marigolds, because, as I was saying, you do have to cut quite deep in the plant. So it would be nice. Those first kind of cuts, I can cut a single stem off the marigold plant, and then maybe it took 2 weeks until there was another stem again. So by having 400 plants of marigolds, that means that I could have 200 a week, 200 stems. I mean, I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't. These need like 12-inch spacing, so I don't even think I can fit. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna do a whole bed of them. I'm really excited. Moral of the story, after I've ranted about marigolds forever. But yeah, no, these are and I always grew the little French marigolds, like the classic, like they're short, like, I have always grown them because they've done so well. They've always been in my vegetable garden. They're kind of like something that I interplant in the vegetable garden. And I always considered the African marigolds really fussy and like really difficult. So I never bothered with them. But I was really impressed with how easy they were to grow. Clearly the experiences that I'd had with them previously is maybe about the fact that if you're not deadheading them, they kind of fizzle out. And because I'm picking them for cut flowers, they keep growing and they keep growing and they keep growing. But yeah, so I'm excited. Okay. We're running out of, okay. I'm going to do this one last one because I know that this is another one that I grew last year. And so I have a lot of details about what I liked about it last year, what I did wrong, what I'm going to do better. So we'll do this, and then that's where I'm going to end it. But that puts us well positioned to have a reasonably length to finish, because this is how much is left, and that seems like a lot, but some of these are really fast to go through because I have my status and my straw flowers in there. But yeah, that's a reasonable one last Johnny Seeds unboxing for next week. Okay, so let's get a picture. Okay, so last year my goal with flowers was to be able to have flowers for Canadian Thanksgiving, which happens in mid-October. Right? Is that correct? Yeah. Canadian Thanksgiving happens like before Halloween. So now I'm double guessing myself, but no, that is 100% right. So normally our first frost is in early to mid October, where we are here. So Thanksgiving is like hit or miss. It's hard to actually be able to confidently say that I'm going to be able to have flowers for Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving is actually a really big sales day. If you guys watched our video from last year, we had the one where where we're talking about Thanksgiving down at the farmer's market and in the farm stand. And it was, one of our biggest sales weekends of the entire year. I think we almost sold $1,000 from the farm stand and that was like flowers. It was like, the only thing that was really selling out of the farm stand was flowers. And we had a really strong Thanksgiving market with flowers. So my goal was Thanksgiving flowers, and I made it. But we did have frost, right? So the way that I was aiming to be able to have Thanksgiving flowers was to grow things that I knew could handle a frost, so that when the frost happened, I would still be able to have something. And so the basis of that was the sunflowers. I figured that sunflowers would handle the frost. And then the other thing, which was kale, these like decorative kale flowers. And you didn't, yeah. Oh, and sedum. Sedum was the other thing. Thank you for in the chat there. That's why I hoarded the sedum until Thanksgiving, because the sedum was going to be my filler. Because all the greens were potentially going to get killed off. And then Thanksgiving, I ended up having, what did I have for filler? It was the scented geranium. I ended up using scented geranium for filler because it ended up being really strong at surviving the cold temperatures. And then I had some other stuff that was like really surprising. I think I had status, I had straw flowers. I had like a small patch of cosmos. Cosmos are super frost sensitive. But there was like a small patch where for some reason it was like just warm there. I don't know why. I had a lot of options. I had a lot of things to work with. But I didn't really have very much of this decorative kale, even though I did about a third of a bed of decorative kale that I planted. So what I did last year is I started them in June and then I planted them out in July. And so I did that because I didn't want to have to deal with growing these decorative kales when I'm really busy. It's kind of April and May are super busy with planting out all the transplants that I do, all the tomatoes, all the things that I kind of have to wait until the last frost. So I wanted to be able to do the decorative kales, started in June, when things were kind of slowing down on the farm, planted out in July, that gives me time. I think that bed I had planted carrots, or maybe I pulled out a harvest of carrots out of that bed before I planted the decorative kale, so I wanted to be able to get like two plantings per bed with the decorative kale. And then, so what happened is I have super hot, super hot, dry conditions. This is not the weather that kale likes. So the kale takes, it's saying here 90 to 110 days. And I would, on all of the days to maturity for Johnny seeds, I always just think the longest, right? There's no point planning for best case scenario. It's never best case scenario. It's always the longest time in my experience. So I plan for the longest. So that's not too bad, but it needs a while. And I can go a little bit later. I'm gonna finish up with this and then I'm gonna go. But thank you guys for all the warnings, time warnings. So the decorative kales, because I planted it in the heat, they were so stunted and they were so unhappy from trying to grow from these tiny little seedlings in the heat that they never really did anything. And so they were like 12 inches tall. And the flowers, they were beautiful because they just look kind of like a weird, why would you grow that sad, unhealthy kale? Like a sad, unhealthy eating kale is what they look like. But as the daylight hours shorten, as you get into the fall, they start to have these really stunning colors. So here, I'm going to say, so what I bought is so the ones that I did last year, and they are my favorite. They're the ones that, this is what I want. I only want this, is the Crane series. And I got the Crane white, I got the Crane red, and I got the Crane pink. And the Crane pink was my favorite, I think. Let's look at it. Yeah. So here, this is crane red, crane white, crane pink, and the pink was my favorite. The red was very dramatic and very beautiful, but the pink was the most versatile for me for in the bouquets. And so I picked through the bed. There was a few that had stems long enough that I was able to use it in like shorty bouquets. So I did use some of these in those Thanksgiving bouquets, and then I used it a few times for like these super short little stems. I think I'd made some wreaths for the Christmas market that had the kales, because I've used kales before in my home wreaths in the past, and they eat out in the cold weather. They don't dry out super fast. They look fairly good in the cold for about a month. So that's what I did last year. What I'm going to do this year is I'm going to plant these earlier. It was just too hot for when I planted them. So my plan is I'm going to plant... That's rude. Okay, too loud. I'm almost done, okay? And then you guys can have your sherbet. So these, they just need more time. And so also what I did with these last year is I didn't pinch them, which means they just were like a single stem. But I've heard other people say that you can pinch these if you plant them early, and then you end up getting 4 flowers, not a single flower per plant. And the flowers are smaller, so they're more reasonable. They look more like a rose, whereas sometimes they can be like, the size of a hand. They can be really overwhelming in a bouquet. So for next year, I'm gonna, I don't know, maybe I'll even start these in April, and then have them planted out in May. Maybe I'll start them in May, plant them out kind of like end of May before it gets into the crazy heat. It also could have been that crazy heat wave. Maybe they got planted out, like they just suffered too much from the heat waves that we had. Fingers crossed we don't get as many. Hopefully we don't get 46 again next year. But yeah, so these I really like. These I'm really excited about. And even though planting them earlier means that they are going to have to take up an entire bed, they're going to take this space for an entire season. They are more than worth the effort to be able to have something so beautiful and so stunning and so valuable, because I can sell them for a lot of money. After the frost, they're money in the bank when they're in the farm. And I see people talking about like bugs and stuff. And here, the thing that we have issues with on the kale is they get covered in aphids, like just nasty and gross. But they can get covered in aphids and get nasty and gross, and it's fine because they get covered in aphids because they hate the hot weather, and so the aphids come and attack it in the heat. But I'm almost done.
Yep. I only ate my rice and my stuff.
Well, you have to eat the carrots or else you don't get a treat.
So these.
I'm almost done. Yeah, go eat some. These I'm almost. Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, aphids. So these, they can get covered in aphids in the heat, but because I'm picking them in the cold weather, the aphids die after it gets cold. And so I'm still, even if these get aphidy and gross, I don't have to rip them out and get rid of them. As long as the plants don't suffer so much that they die from the aphids, I can still sell them even if they've gotten bugs on them, because the bugs will die by the time I go to sell them. Crane series, decorative kale, highly recommend. I really like it. Okay, so I'm gonna end it there. We'll finish this next week. So it feels crazy. So there's so many seeds. This has been like intimidating. Part of the reason why I didn't start doing this Johnny Seeds unboxing until in January is I was like, there's so many seeds. I don't even know where to start. There's so many things to talk about. I'm like, I can't do it in one sitting. It's like I have 10 hours worth of things to talk about, which it's probably it's going to be like a full 8 hours of just talking by the time all these live videos are done. But yeah, we're getting there. And then after that, it's like, I mean, this week, a ton of the seed is like coming down to the outbuilding. We're starting seeds. Tomorrow, that's my job tomorrow. I already started some snapdragons. They're not up yet, but it's very exciting. So, for this, I don't know when I'll get it done because I have to actually do work, so it's hard to make the video. But there's a video coming all about seed starting, doing these first seed startings. Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting because it means the season's starting. And there's a few other seed unboxings that I have, but this is the majority of my seed this year. So it's crazy. It's crazy to think it's almost time. Okay, I'm gonna run and put my kids to bed, but thank you so much. Thanks everyone for hanging out and joining me. And we'll see you guys next week. Okay, bye now.